ಸೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್? Hello, good afternoon everyone. I think it will be better if you guys come and sit in the front. Please come. It's okay, I won't ask any questions. You guys also please come and sit in the front. Please come. Sir, what's your name? Please come in the front. I won't ask specific questions. I won't point you out and ask. If you are willing to answer, I'll just interact. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Viewers, I think you are already students of PCM and foundation course, right? So PCM classes foundation and NCERT foundation course is starting from next Monday, which is 5th of August. Anybody who is interested in doing like giving UPSC attempt, you can join the classes. If you have any inquiries, you can come to the LaExcellence office and inquire about it, or in the description we'll give you the contact number. You can contact the office and ask about the course. In the course we'll be covering NCERT basics and GS foundation classes of every subject, both including mains and prelims, and we'll be covering monthly current affairs, weekly current affairs, and monthly practice test, rapid revision program, which will be right before the exam, so that we'll just sum up everything that is like the sum of the entire course before the exam. So it will include all of the features like tests, classes, mentorship, evaluation, weekly and monthly tests, and foundation classes. Okay, anybody who is interested, please call your LaExcellence, or you can come directly to the office and inquire about it. And next we have this Siksha program. Anybody, I think you guys already have it with the foundation courses, but anybody who is willing to take separate test series, this is a prelims cum mains test series, where we will have both prelims as well as mains weekly tests, and also the total number of tests will be 92 over the course of 10 months. So you'll be covering both prelims and mains simultaneously. You will have mentorship as along with a timely evaluation within 7 to 10 days of writing your test. And this is flexible, you can write it anytime after the test has been released. Okay, anybody who is interested in joining, you will also get a scholarship in this test series. And geography optional workshop, and the test series is starting from Monday. Okay. Can you hear me, guys? Am I audible? Okay. Starting from again August 5th, Monday, and the workshop geography. Okay, geography optional workshop is on 9th August, Friday at 4 p.m. Anybody who is interested to take, I think some of the students who came to the mentorship, they said they were interested in geography optional. Anybody who is interested in the optional, you can attend this workshop. Okay, so now we'll come back to the class. So in this class, we'll be just discussing about how to approach an answer, mains answer writing. So I have seen a lot of students who have been writing, my friends who have been writing multiple mains, and they are unable to clear the exam. Even though they are very good, they are very hardworking, they are very talented, they are from good colleges, there are some basics that everybody has to fulfill in order to get decent score in mains. Okay, so here right now initially we'll be covering about the PYQs. So 2020, I have picked 2023 PYQs, recent PYQs. I have picked only very easy questions initially, so that nimge ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ easy irli anta. Initially we'll discuss this. After that we'll do a little bit of a workshop where we'll be writing answers here only. Then I'll check them. Then I'll give you like individual feedback on that. Okay. First, so GS1 answer writing session was over last Monday. It is on YouTube. You can go and check it if you want to just cover that portion. So today we'll be doing GS2. So just before that, I just want to know you guys a little bit. I think some of the faces I've seen in mentorship sessions. So anyway, just from here, you don't have to get up or anything. Just tell me what's your name and what have you studied, like what have graduation, or if you're working or if you're still studying. Just say where you're from. That's it. Or if you've decided any optional, you can tell me about the optional also. Okay. Let's start with Enakshi.
I don't know, I'm Meenakshi.
Okay.
And I have completed my BCom like last month.
Okay.
And my optional is commerce and accountancy.
Okay.
My name is Bhavna and my graduation is in computer science.
Okay.
I'm Ashwini.
Okay.
I completed masters in chemistry.
Okay.
My name is Tanusha. I completed M.
Okay.
I'm from Vijay.
Okay.
Myself, Manishri. I'm from Vijapur. I pursued MSc in anthropology and also to take optional as anthropology.
Okay.
And my name is Janan and I completed BSc. I'm from Maryland.
Okay.
I'm Rima. My graduation BCom and professional.
Okay.
My name is Devendra.
Okay.
BI.
Okay. Yes.
I'm from Yadgiri.
Sorry?
Yadgiri.
Yadagiri. Okay.
Myself Santosh.
Okay.
I completed my engineering in electrical and electronics. My optional subject is public administration.
Okay. Okay. You're from? Oh no. Where are you from? Okay.
My name is Sachin. I graduated BCom from Bihar.
Okay.
My option is yes. Myself Yogesh. I'm from Mandya. I graduated on this system.
Okay.
My name is Anush. I completed my MBA.
Okay.
I'm from Nirmala.
Okay.
I'm Chetan Hidde. Madari. BCom completed. After
Okay.
I'm Nasaraj.
Sorry?
Nasaraj.
Okay. Okay.
Sudhir Kumar, GS-2 completed.
So, I think ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ನಾನು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಈ ವೀಕ್. ಐ ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ಅ ಫ್ಯೂ ನೇಮ್ಸ್. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಏನಾದರೂ ಕೋಪ ಬಂದರೆ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟಾಕ್ ಟು ಮೀ. ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಟೆಲ್ ಯು ಗೈಸ್ ಹೌ ಟು develop on that answers. Okay. Why we generally give low marks is because you guys would have written 11th, 12th, 10th standard public exam, right? In public exams, so generally the pattern that they follow is, if you've written a decent answer, if you've covered all the points, if you've written what is given in the book, they will give you, if it is out of 10 marks, they will give you somewhere around 9 marks or sometimes 10 marks also. And they will give you 100 marks in math. Generally, so ಏನಾಗುತ್ತಂದರೆ, if you've written well, English, apart from English, in English maybe you'll be getting like maximum of 99 out of 100, but they'll be giving you 100 out of 100 in math, chemistry or social sciences. But UPSC alli angilla. UPSC, what happens is generally we don't know this officially, but the thing is maximum scores or good score out of a paper is 50%. Is this sorry? So this is the first time I'm taking the class here in this classroom.
You need to click on the cursor.
Which okay, this one. Okay. That's it? Okay, the okay. Okay, sorry guys. Just a few, it will just take, this is starting trouble. I've been taking classes there. Okay, so 50% is generally the good score, like maximum score, or like really good score in GS. Whereas in optional vandu, somewhere around 60% is a good score, because let's take GS 250, out of 250 generally toppers will be getting around, let's say 100 or 110, 120, which is around 50%, even not even 50%, less than 50% only. So if you are somewhere scoring out of 10, in a 10 marker, if you are scoring 5 or 6 marks, or in a 15 marker, if you are scoring 7 or 8 marks, it's a really good score. But you can't, like, it's very difficult to get past this. Why generally people, I have scored like 2.5, 2 and all this, because it's not that the answer was bad, it's because some basic framework, some basic criteria in the answer was not met. And you should know, because it is very important. Generally, the examiner, when they are correcting the paper, they will look for places where they can cut your marks, where they can reduce your marks. So you shouldn't be giving them that option. So we'll discuss the basics of answer writing, what you need in an answer to write a good answer. So this is the checklist for writing good answers. I discussed this in the last class. Since you guys were not there, we'll just be discussing about that a little bit briefly in this session. Okay? So first of all, when there is an answer, firstly, the most important thing is addressing the demand of the question. Demand of the question is, so let's say you have taken ethics class. You've completed ethics class. Ethics class alli, they would have completed all the basics of ethics. Essence of ethics andre eno, determinants of ethics andre eno. But the question will not be like, directly they won't ask you what is determinants of ethics. They won't ask you those questions. Those are like the questions that you can expect in public exams or maybe school exams. But in UPSC, they'll ask a little bit further, analytical. Like, what are the determinants of ethics in public service? So then what you have to write is, just a determinants anta baridre, you won't be getting good marks. Why? Because you are not understanding what is the demand of the question. Demand of the question is, he is asking the determinants with respect to public service. So public service alli what is important? Another, if you like just hit the bullseye, if you just write what is very important, prioritize the points and write, then you will be scoring well. Why? Because examiner, when they check your paper, first you have to make a good impression. So the presentation should be neat, like introduction. You have to give a subheading, and I generally suggest students to box the subheading. Box madidre enagutte andre, it will be easier for them to know that, okay, this person has written intro, this person has given subheading, this person has written points, matte innon subheading, matte points, and example also is given. So we'll be talking about that when we address the questions. Okay? So demand of the question, you have to meet specifically. Whatever they have given, you have to write accordingly only. For example, if they have given something about compare USA and Indian Constitution, you can't just write about the features of US Constitution and Indian Constitution. You have to compare them both. And sometimes questions, they would not explicitly mention that right measures. but you still have to write measures for some issues. For example, let's say there's a question about poverty, okay? Why there is, like despite so many programs in India, poverty programs in India, why poverty is still there in India, something like that. If the question is there, then you have to know that the demand of the question is, first they are asking you about the programs. Programs ಏನೇನಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬರಿಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Then you have to write why poverty is still there. You shouldn't write generic points why poverty is still there. You should write poverty is still there despite having these programs. E programs you have to write in specifically with respect to the programs. That is what they are asking. If you just generally write, okay, poverty is because of this, unemployment is there, per capita income is less. If you just write basic points, you won't get good marks. You have to write in specific manner with respect to the programs. For example, implementation is not happening properly, or there is corruption. And specifically, according to the paper, you have to write paper specific answers. For example, GS1 GS1 question andre you have to write GS1 answer. I'll give you an example. If there is an earthquake question, earthquake question can be asked both in GS1 and GS3. GS3 ಅಲ್ಲಿ disaster management ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, whereas in GS1 they'll ask from geography perspective. So you can't write the same answer in both the papers, right? Disaster management ಅಲ್ಲಿ you have to write from the disaster perspective. You have to give disaster measures ಏನು, Sendai framework ಇದೆ. So all those kind of like specific measures you have to give. Whereas when you write the same question in GS1, you have to write from geographical perspective. You have to give the keywords, like specific keywords ಅಂದರೆ ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. Geographyಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಫೋಕೈ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. Focus of an earthquake and waves, about the damage, generally what is going on, geophysical phenomena behind it. Whereas in disaster management, you will be writing about the so about the preventive measures as well as people getting affect ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, because disaster is from people's perspective, right? So you have to write from that perspective. According to the paper, again you have to change your keywords. Ethics question andre you have to write a lot of ethical keywords. Generally if you can't find any, I'll give you some tips when we later move on, how to manage an answer. Why? Because ಇವಾಗ 20 questions ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. 20 questions. Out of these 20 questions, only like maximum of 12-13 questions you will know properly. Remaining 7 or 8 questions, how will you attempt? You will already have a previous knowledge, but how will you execute that previous knowledge? And how easily can you make up a point? Alli, and it is very important because time management is also important. Public exam alli will write for 100 marks, will be given 3 hours. Whereas illi same 3 hours, but 250 marks. So for 110 marker, you will have around 6 to 7 minutes. 6 or 7 minutes. 115 marker, you will have around like 10 or 11 minutes. Okay? So within this time frame, you have to bring the best answers. Adike, if you see some toppers copies, what happens is you won't find that the answer is perfect. Why? Because within that time frame, it is very impractical to write all perfect answers. But the point here is to maximize your output. Engandre you should write like some 12-13 really good answers. Remaining answers everybody will manage, and you have to also learn the art of managing, how to manage it well, so that even in those questions you get good marks compared to others. Okay? So demand of the question is very important. Structuring ಹೆಂಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಲೈಕ್ ಅ ಮೂವಿ ಹೆಂಗಿರಬೇಕು, ಮೂವಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಏನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾರೆ, ದಿಲ್ ಗಿವ್ ಯು ಅ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಹೆಂಗಿದೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ರಿವಾಲ್ವಿಂಗ್ ದ ಹೀರೋ, then there will be some story, like some future happenings, then there will be some romance, then again fight, then again climax will be there which will sum up everything. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನು ನೀವು ರಿವರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ the movie won't be watchable, right? Similarly, an answer also should be like that. It should be in a flow. ಒಂದು ಇಂಟ್ರೋ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು, ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದರೆ a question related intro should be there, very specific. And if you are adding some kind of facts, so there are different ways where you can write intros. you can include a fact related to the particular topic, or you can you can give a recent example, recently something happened here related to that, or you can just give a definition, but don't give very generic definition. Only when you don't know anything about it, then you give a definition. Okay, ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು, then you just manage it with the definition. Otherwise I would generally suggest that either you put in a fact, or you write something like something poetical agi, ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ using good words. It's just basic in definition, but when you're using good words, it sounds really, good. We'll discuss that when we are writing the answers, okay, when we discuss the answers. So structuring, proper intro ondirbeku, then you give a subheading. How do you create the subheadings? You can sometimes from the question only you can directly write the subheadings. Question ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದು ಹಂಗೆ ಬರೆದ್ರೇನೆ ಅದು sometimes it becomes a good subheading. Then according to the subheading you give points also, how it should be. So if you're writing points, let's say 5 points, but if you're writing, the first point should be the most important point. Shouldn't be like first you're writing some unimportant point and then fifth point is the most important point. First point should be the most important point. Second point should be the second most important point. Something like that. Then you prioritize your top points. Then you write again another subheading, or you give measures, or you give challenges. Based on different kind of questions, you have to write different kind of subheadings. Okay? In that you have to give examples also. And try to keep the points as simple as possible and as short as possible. Don't try to over explain things. Just use the phrases properly. Okay? And after that, when you know good examples, you can just write the points. Then below that you can write example. And if you just give an example, that will add value to your answer. Okay? And then you have to conclude. So no matter what, even if you are writing 2 lines or 1 line, it is better that you just conclude something. Illandre it feels a little incomplete. Try as much as possible to when we will talk about the tips, it will help you if you already have prepared examples and prepared introductions and conclusions. For example, there's this Narendra Modi, the PM, Honorable PM is there. He will give a few quotes. Sometimes he gives very catchy phrases. You can use them in the conclusion. For example, there's Viksit Bharat. You can include that in economy questions, or even poverty, something related to development. You can use that. And there is about Panch Pran, so something about that, or Atmanirbhar Bharat. And when we go on, I'll give you those prepared phrases in the next class. Then you can use that in the answers. So even when you don't know anything about this particular topic, you don't know how to give a conclusion, just with some phrases like these, or some not only the PM, some other person who has given like good words or good small quotes. Don't write bigger quotes, like don't write that in GS answers. You can write that in essay, but in GS answers, try to stick to smaller phrases as much as possible. Okay? So structuring should be accordingly. Intro, subheading, points, example, again subheading, again points, example, and then conclusion. Then it will look like a properly designed answer. Okay? It conveys to the examiner that you also have a very orderly thinking. It's not like your thinking is very, tumba chaotic irbadu. Should be in an order. Okay? All of this you will develop with practice. That is why we are doing this in the initial phase only, so that you don't have that fear of answer writing, as well as you develop it along with the classes, so that you can do it specifically according to the paper. Okay? Then bullet points, as I told you, try to stick with as much as shorter explanation as possible. I've seen some students write 5 to 6 lines of just for 1 point. Don't do that. Try to stick to maximum three lines for one explanation. Okay? Even that 3 is because if it is very important, then you can go up to 3 or 4. Then 5 or 6 is too much. Okay, try to stick to 2 or 3 lines per point. Okay, next, using subject specific keywords, as I told you. So if there is ethics paper, then you have to write ethical keywords, something like conscience, public interest over personal interest, public welfare. Like you have to use you can use the syllabus pointers. Sometimes if you are not able to remember any ethical keywords, syllabus alli some keywords are there, like dedication to public service, work culture, corruption, something like that. If you use, then it feels like a good answer. Okay, substantiation with relevant examples. So substantiate, why should you substantiate? Okay, if I'm asking you about something, why there is malnutrition in India, if you're just saying there is no food, it doesn't, like how do you know there is no food, or there is food shortage or food waste? If you give, okay, this report says that there is this much of food waste, then there is a substantiation. So ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ವ್ಯಾಲಿಡಿಟಿ, there is a validity to your point. So this will add more brownie points to your answers. Okay, 0.5, 0.25. If you give a really good example, if you think of a very innovative solution, then that will add marks to your answer. Good introductions and conclusions. So as I told you guys, introduction should be to the point. It shouldn't be if they are asking something about let's say unemployment, you should write just about unemployment. Or if they are asking specifically about technological unemployment, then you can't write what is unemployment. Are you getting my point? So unemployment and when they ask, you can write about unemployment. But when they are specifically asking about some technological unemployment or disguised unemployment, then you have to specifically write about disguised unemployment in the intro. So it should be to the point. And conclusion should be a very balanced conclusion. And I've seen some students make this mistake. Don't criticize the government explicitly. They don't say government is not doing anything, government doesn't do this, government is corrupt. Don't write that. Like very huge blunder. Don't write that. ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಅಂದರೆ see, there are some problems ಹಿಂಗಿದೆ. You have to basically sugarcoat and write. Okay, and I saw this in one ethics answer. Don't be very practical in ethics paper. So ethics paper is not about practicality at all. Ethics is about how well are you able to give an ethical answer. That's it. So we know that sometimes it might be not practical, but still when you are writing an answer, you shouldn't write like that. I saw a student write, they gave 3 options, and at the end they gave no option is perfect. So I'm not going to ನಾನು ಏನು ಚೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ they had written. So this is practically possible. Practically okay, we might say sometimes there is no option, but you can't write that in an answer. So write a balanced answer. Give all the other extreme answers, then write a balanced answer. Write something very optimistic. Okay, hingagutte, we have to create a developed India, we have to create a good India, we have to make a strong workforce, something like that. Should be very positive. Conclusion should be very positive. Why? Because see, you guys are applying for public service, right? Public service apply ಮಾಡುವಾಗ, if you are, let's say you are applying for a company, will you go and say that your company is not good in the interview? Illa alva. Similarly, if you are applying to the government, you can't directly say that government this is not doing anything at all. That is like common man ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. Common man has the right to say that. Why? Because they are voting, they have the right to criticize the government. But since you want to be a part of the government, you should be very balanced. You can criticize constructively. You can say there are some issues like this, but we can solve this by doing this. And what are they looking for? They are looking for a public servant who can provide solutions. So you have to have a positive attitude, and you have to give solutions in your answer. Okay, generating dimensions and diversity in points. Dimensions, sometimes when there is a generic question, if you don't know the points, what you can do is you can think of, you can go by the syllabus pointers. So first history barutte, historical perspective, right? If there is any historical point, then society, if there is a social point, social dimension, again you can go by geographical dimension. Let's say for example, if they are asking about caste discrimination, when if you're not suddenly able to make any points, you can go by this order. GS1 anta togoli, history, historical perspective, then you can write 1 point. Historically they have been discriminated because of the colonial history and all that, the system, it has been there from the past. So this is already an existing feature in the society, something like that you can write. Again, when you come to society, you can write about the social taboos related to caste. So because of that there is discrimination. Or you can write about intercaste marriages, how they are prohibited, or how they are seen as some, there is a stereotype, something like that you can write. Again, when you come to geography, if there is something about why this particular tribe or this particular caste is underdeveloped, you can write that there is geographical isolation. Yakandre they are like living completely isolated from the mainstream, something like that. 1 point you can add. Again, politically you can say lack of political participation. Again, international. Then economy, when you come to economy, you can write that there is lack of economic opportunities or educational opportunities. Social justice, you can write about sanitation, lack of water supply, electricity, and if you give some percentage is to the literacy percentage of this this particular community is this much compared to normal average, then you are comparing and you are saying this particular community is a little bit underdeveloped or has a low literacy, then you are substantiating your point. So this will add value to your answer. Okay, so when you are not able to this, you can use an essay also, different kind of perspectives, and you can use in a GS answer also. When you are not able to think of any ready-made answer, then you can think about social, economical, political perspective and write your points. Okay, prioritizing points in a logical flow, this already I discussed. As I told you guys, if you are giving 5 points, you have to write the first important point in the first line. Okay, then second, then third, again, then that should be the way you address a question. Okay, government initiatives, way forward, suggestions, solutions. So as I told you guys, you have to give measures when there is, especially when there is a social issue or some development related issues. You have, even if it is not mentioned in the question, you have to write at least in the end, just write measures. You can write measures and make a small chart and then just give 3 or 4 points. So this, even if it is not mentioned in the question, you have to give measures in particular questions. Okay, so integrating infographics, maps, flowcharts and facts. As I told you again, maps you can generally include in a geography question, and you also need to know where to include and where not to include. For example, if the question is about India and USA, you can't draw a world map and just mark USA is here, India is here. So that will not fetch you marks. That feels like ಏನಾಗುತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ gives a negative impression rather than a positive impression. So why this is irrelevant here, right? So you can't write that in you can't put that in an IR question, and you can't expect 0.5 marks for that. Okay, but whereas if the question is asked about location of earthquakes, location of about cyclones, about ocean currents, then you can draw a world map, and whatever ocean currents you remember, you can draw that. You can draw the earthquakes, the mid-oceanic ridges. If it is about sea floor spreading, then you can make a diagram and specifically mention. Okay, but IRLE also you can include maps where so if there is some let's say there was this Belt and Road Initiative, right? Or recently there is a Middle East Europe corridor, right? So if you remember any port, this Chabahar port in Iran, right? Iran only, right? And so, sir, there's a port in Greece, there's a port in UAE, Saudi Arabia. If you remember those names, then you can just draw a very rough map of rough world map. Don't take a lot of time drawing perfect map. Practice already at home. Try to draw it a few times. It should just look like world map. It's not compulsory that you have to draw a perfect map. It should just look like, okay, this is South America is here, North America is here, Asia is here, Africa is here. That's it. Okay. After that, you can just mention these ports are here. This line comes from here to here. That will give you marks. Why? Because it is specific. You are writing about the ports. You are giving about the specific locations. Okay. But don't do that in the country questions. Okay. They are asking about Quad. Don't draw the 4 countries and mark them. Okay. You getting my point, right? Okay. Okay. This is the basics of an answer. So these are all the basic things that if you cover them properly, then this will ensure that you get a decent score in the mains answer. Okay. Next we'll go to the, okay, again, this one. So we'll just check some toppers answers. On the idea barli anta, I just included them here. So this question, this is Anudeep All India Rank 1 2017 ansutte. If you are not able to see here clearly, later after you go home, you can check on internet. And also for GS2, there's this topper called Garima Lohaya. I don't know if you guys have heard. Now when you go after this session, you can go and check her answers. So she writes really well GS2 answers. It will be very crisp, very to the point. Tumba bariyalla avaru. But to the point, she will address the demand of the question. She will write a decent answer. It will give you an idea of how to address a GS paper, GS2 paper specifically. Okay, you can check that paper after you go home. Okay. The question is, what are the checks on parliamentary sovereignty in India? Do you think, so this is one part of the question until here. Okay. Do you think judicial activism poses a threat to the free working of parliament? Justify your answer. So here what are they asking? The first question is very direct. So they are asking the checks on parliamentary sovereignty. So what are the checks on parliamentary sovereignty? First you need to know. So there is this judicial, constitutional supremacy is there, basic structure. So all of this places a check and balance on parliamentary sovereignty, so that it ensures that the parliament doesn't go beyond its limit of power. Okay. So again, as I told you, the second part asks, do you think judicial activism, first you have to know what is judicial activism. Does it pose a threat to the free working of parliament? That means you have to say first yes also. You don't have to write yes directly. You have to write points for yes also. You have to write points for no also. Then in the end you have to give a balanced conclusion. Despite this being there, it is helpful for the working of the democracy, something like that. So you have to first write how it is posing a threat to parliament, again how it is not posing a threat to parliament, then you have to conclude. Okay, we'll see the answer. So this is the introduction. Parliamentary sovereignty refers to the independent and autonomous nature of parliament to legislate on matters of importance. So basic introduction kottidare. Constitution of India provides parliamentary sovereignty through. That's it. So this is the subheading here. Okay, or from there also you can just put a box. Okay, Constitution provides parliamentary sovereignty. So he has mentioned the articles, Article 246 to 47. They mention the extent of application of parliamentary laws throughout the territory of India. Okay. Okay, Schedule 7. Schedule 7, again it has 3 lists where it defines which one, okay, state list, concurrent list and union list. So here he's not writing about those lists. Since the question is about parliamentary sovereignty, he mentions subject list in which parliament is competent to legislate. For example, law and order is state subject, whereas international agreements is union subject. So example on kottidare. Just he has written like schedule, in the schedule that there is a union list. Union list is the limit of where the union, that is the parliament, can legislate. Again he has given example. Okay, this belongs to this belongs to this. Example andre real all the time it's not that you have to give a real life example. Sometimes it's not possible. So according to the question asked, you can give certain like related question. And first see, so they have not asked what is parliamentary sovereignty, but still he has given that parliamentary sovereignty comes through these things. Okay, sometimes they are not explicitly mentioned in the question. Onondsati kelirilla, they won't ask, but it will be hidden, like it will be asked indirectly. It is like just our basic sense to know that we have to also write what is this. First we have to see, he mentioned what is parliamentary sovereignty. He gave from which articles those powers are coming. And now he is writing about the checks. So see, this is like direct subheading from the question. Checks on parliamentary sovereignty, that's it. So sometimes if you don't know subheading in how to get the subheading, what you can do, you can just rephrase whatever is in the question and make a subheading. Okay. Judicial review. Okay, judicial review is a check on parliament. And again public interest litigation. Public interest litigation, PIL. So is given example, recent is judgment, NJAC. Okay. Parliamentary committees. So parliamentary committees check how suppose if they have given funds, how those funds were used and all that they will be checking. You can give an example of some parliamentary committee that keeps a check on parliamentary sovereignty. Okay. Discretionary power of president, power of state representation and Rajya Sabha. So Rajya Sabha is also a check on the union, so that states ko solpa power irli, so that they can also ask questions to the government. Okay. So these are all the points. So first point, see, judicial review is the first point. Why? Because priority point. The second question, what is it asking about? Judicial activism ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. So here the first point that he has given is about judicial review. This is what I said. You have to logically prioritize your points. So you can't write judicial review in the fifth point. Why? Because the question itself asks the second part of the question is asking about judicial activism. Okay. So okay, judicial activism as threat. Yes. So as some points he has given. Again, it's not a threat anta kottidare. Okay, as I told you guys. So do you think anta keltare? Do you think? Then you can't just say yes or no explicitly. You have to be balanced, and you should also say yes, these are all the points for that. No, these are all the points for that. So no, illi he has given these points. So public interest, it serves public interest. So judicial activism. So example you can give Vishaka guidelines against sexual harassment, or in some environmental cases government judiciary would have taken some active role and it would have done something. Some examples you can have on particular syllabus pointers that will help you in the answers. So now finally to conclude anta one conclusion bardidare. So the conclusion is judicial activism must be balanced with parliamentary sovereignty. They are two wheels on which constitution runs smoothly. Okay, this is Palgiwala's quote. See, the quote is within one line ashte irodu, and he's written it very small. can't write like 2-3 lines code parivedi in GS answer. If it is really good, then you can include that in conclusion and you can just quote who has said that, okay. That will add, generally a lot of people don't add that, so when you do that it will add a little bit of validation to your answers, okay. So this is the basics that we were talking about. So he has addressed the demand of the question, he has given substantiation with examples, he has written it in an order, intro, points, then conclusion, then yes, no, and then a balanced conclusion, okay. So I just gave that so that you can have a basic idea about the basic answers, okay. Later you guys can go and check, okay, his answers, as well as Garima Lohaya you can check for GS2, okay. So these are the questions we will be discussing. So I have just taken basic questions, easy questions from 2023 GS2. We will be discussing about how to address this question, what are the points that you can write. We are not going to specifically write a full answer here, so we will just write what can be written in the introduction. So I am not saying you have to write like this only. So some people have, different people have different type of writing, different style of writing. Some people write in a very lengthy manner, some people write it very shortly, some people have this very straightforward answers, and some people will write in a poetic manner. So this all depends on the individual. According to your own style of writing, try to know what is your style of writing. Accordingly, you don't have to change everything entirely. Basics ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಇವಾಗ, ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್, examples, addressing what the completely everything to the point, being very specific. All these if you follow, if you in your own style, that will produce maximum output, okay. So this is the question. Today we will be discussing about the introduction body, what can be written. This is only suggestive. If you want to work on this, what you can do is after going home, you can just write your own answer of these few questions, and if you can get it back to me. I'll check it and I'll let you know what is good and what is bad. You also need to know what is working well also, so that you can continue that in every paper. Then what is not working, then on that you can work upon, okay. You can go home, write full answers, then you can bring it back to me, okay. Now we will just be discussing about the how to approach an answer, okay. Constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence is a prerequisite of democracy. What is a prerequisite? Prerequisite andre for something to happen, idu irlebeku, something should be there, this is necessary. So that they are saying that judicial independence is necessary, like irlebeku, without this it's impossible ano tara. It's like a prerequisite andre some precondition, something like a precondition. If it is there only, this is possible. So they are saying that judicial independence is prerequisite, that is necessary for democracy. So this is a statement. So next class, if possible, we will discuss about these directives. Did they do that in any answer writing class? Comment irutte, critically analyze, discuss. So these type of, have you seen the PYQs? So if you see the PYQs, there are some specific directives in specific questions. Have you noticed it? So in some questions there are critically analyze, in some questions it is given discuss, some questions they have given comment, some questions, last question we saw they are asked justify. So you have to also clearly know what is that particular directive, so that you can understand how to approach an answer, okay. Next class we will be doing that. This class will just discuss these few GS2 answers, okay. Constitutionally guaranteed. So he is already saying that constitutionally guaranteed independence, judicial independence is precondition, prerequisite for democracy. Sometimes comment anta kottidre, first you have to write yes also, then you have to write no also, or no anta specifically illa, you have to write what are the problems of these judicial independence. Sometimes we'll discuss that. First we'll discuss the topic, then we'll discuss about the answer. Sometimes what happens when we give too much of independence to judiciary, so the word is called here judicial overreach. Judicial overreach. Overreach andre enagutte, it will, judiciary will come into parliament's sphere of work. Andre parliament maado work na kuda judiciary madak start madutte. Then what happens? Then parliament, so, like parliament power is being taken, right? Yeah, so there is a particular sphere, andre ಜುಡಿಷರಿಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಪವರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ಜುಡಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಓವರ್ ರೀಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್, ದಟ್ ಜುಡಿಷರಿ is trying to expand a sphere and it is trying to overlap on legislative functions. What is the function of parliament? Legislative function, right? Legislative and executive. So judiciaryಗೆ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪವರ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಜುಡಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಓವರ್ ರೀಚ್ ಅಂದರೆ, so that the word means that judiciary is trying to encroach upon legislative powers, that is parliamentary powers. So this can happen when there is too much of independence, right? And ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, independence, too much of independence ಇರುವಾಗ there will be no gap for reforms, right? Judicial reforms. What are the judicial reforms necessary andre, are you even if you have not completed certain topics, it's no problem, we'll be just discussing basics. After you complete these topics in your foundation classes, you'll be easily able to figure out what we are talking about. Okay, judicial reforms are necessary. Why? Because we know that there are a lot of cases pending in judiciary that you are aware of, right? So why are the reforms necessary? So that ಈ ಅನ್ನೆಸೆಸರಿ ತುಂಬ ಪೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಕೇಸಸ್ ಇರೋದನ್ನು that we can we can push them, we can speed, we can, what is the word, fasten the process. Okay, fasten the process of judicial work. And also there are multiple vacancies in judiciary. So all of these problems which are there in judiciary can only be rectified with judicial reforms, right? So idu madake you won't have a lot of space. So this will happen when there is too much of judicial independence. So these are all the problems: judicial overreach and no space for reforms. Okay, resistance to reforms. Whereas yes, when there is judicial independence iruvaga enagutte, what happens when judiciary is independent? So that it checks and balances. So these are the specific keywords. It can keep checks and balances. Checks and balances are necessary enakke andre, so that the government doesn't become too powerful, right? Government tumba powerful like when it is becoming too powerful, judiciary will come and try to balance it. So these are all the things, checks and balances. And it will check the constitutional validity of an act. Okay, constitutional validity check ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, whether this act is valid or not, whether it is constitutionally invalid. You guys, have you completed polity subject? How much have you completed, you guys? Not yet started. NCERTs, have you completed NCERTs? No. Madilva? Videos nodilva? Okay, you guys, what you can do is do 11th and 12th NCERTs. I told this in the mentorship sessions, people who have come to the mentorship session. Generally 6th and the 12th anta heltare, but 6th is not that necessary. And with lack of time, you can just do 11th and 12th. I think basic understanding, you can create a basic understanding with just 11th and 12th NCERT. And don't try to make notes out of it. I don't think it is that necessary. Why? Because the return on investment is not that much. And NCERTs are for basic understanding. Okay, just read it like a novel. Unsati 11th and 12th polity, first read polity, then try geography, then history as well. New NCERTs are coming. And economics ke you can skip the macroeconomics part. Okay, Macroeconomics is too unnecessarily complexly given in NCERT. I think which will be better understood with some other book. You can read other books for 11th and 12th geography if you want to have a basic understanding of the subjects. Okay. So actually I didn't know that you guys have not done the classes completely. Otherwise we would have started with some easy question, very easy question, basic question. Let me see if there is a question. Okay, let's do this. Have you done current affairs? Current affairs, are you guys doing weekly current affairs? Okay. So actually from next class what we'll do is we'll take up the easy questions, basic questions from from our institute, from just weekly questions. Then we'll discuss the basics on that. Why? Because what happens is now that we are discussing polity, and if you have not done those topics, it might be a little difficult for you guys to follow up. Okay. Okay, this question will complete, then I'll see if we can do some other easy question from GS-2 only. Okay. Constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence. So first of all, you have to write about the independence of judiciary. The main theme anta ondirutte. There will be a theme in the question. Here the theme is judicial independence. Judicial independence is the theme here. So they are talking, basically this question is twisted in a way that they are asking about whether judicial independence is good or not. How is it good or how is it bad? So idanna avaru twist maadi kelidare. So they are just asking, constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence is a prerequisite of democracy. So they are asking whether judicial independence, how is it helping democracy? That is the basic question here. Okay. And you also have to address that it is constitutionally guaranteed. Constitutionally guaranteed anta avare kottirovaga we have to give some substantiation for that. So firstly, when you are writing, you have to give a decent you have to give a decent introduction. So firstly, you have to write, you can write that independence, judicial independence is the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. Judicial independence has been, so, or something like constitutional supremacy is one of the basic features of Indian Constitution or Indian governance, something like that. Just basic something you can write. You can mention articles, or if you are writing, you can write that Article 13 provides for judicial review, which is but the question is not about judicial review here, right? So you have to write about judicial independence. So what you can give is, you can write but that is separation of executive from judiciary. This is what I am saying. When you are giving an article also, just make sure that it is particularly about that question. So what will you write about judicial independence? Judicial independence is you can write, what you can do is, if you don't know particular article, you can first write about judicial independence. You can write judicial independence is one of the basic features of Indian Constitution, and then you can write that article, for example Article 142 gives for complete justice, and Article 368, whereas 368 is because of rigidity, that you can't amend the constitution, you can't change the things in the constitution very easily. So something like that, if you write that the basic theme behind amendment of constitution is judicial independence, and you can write about the tenure of Supreme Court judges. So judicial independence, how the constitution provides for judicial independence. You can write a few articles, you can write a few things that are provided in the constitution. For example, first of all, they provide for Article 141 and 142, where 141 gives for original jurisdiction for Supreme Court, whereas 142 gives for complete justice, where in some cases Supreme Court can go beyond and give so that it can ensure justice. Are you guys able to follow what I'm saying? Okay. So then also you can write about tenure and service conditions of Supreme Court judges. So judges ke on social security kottidare that you can't remove them easily. Removing Supreme Court judges, there is a particular procedure for that, and they have a little bit of security of their tenure. So these are all things, there are conditions, sometimes salary and all the conditions cannot be changed without proper amendments. They cannot be changed to their disadvantage. These are articles that you will be learning in the classes. So there are some things like tenure, there are some things like the Supreme Court and High Courts, whatever expenditure it comes from Supreme Court and High Court, it is charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. Consolidated Fund of India andre, so parliamentary approval bekagilla. So the parliament doesn't have to, you don't need vote of the parliament for Supreme Court to spend anything. So Supreme Court can spend anything from the Consolidated Fund of India. It doesn't need parliament's approval. So these are features of independence. So financial independence, like if you give financial independence to something, so that will also ensure that judiciary is also independent, right? So financial independence, and there are some powers. So there is some social security for the judges. So these are the ways that judicial independence is being guaranteed from the Constitution, right? So first you have to write a basic introduction. Then you can write that these articles, tenure and Supreme Court Consolidated Fund of India, being charged from Consolidated Fund of India, all of these provides judicial independence to the judiciary. Okay, so you can write it as a subheading. You can write constitutional guarantee. Constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence. Or if you don't want to write it as a subheading, ಏನು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, first you can start with the intro. You can say judicial independence is an integral part of the Constitution, or it is a basic structure of the Constitution. Then you can write this Constitution of India provides for judicial independence through. So last answer we saw, right? So like that you can write that the judicial independence comes from the Constitution through these articles. Then you can write these in points. So this article provides judicial independence. This thing provides judicial independence. Since it is Consolidated Fund of India, then judicial independence. So first here you're addressing the constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence part. First you're addressing the first part of the question. So you're explaining how judicial independence is guaranteed through the Constitution. First idana you have substantiated. Next you have to then go to the second part of the question, which is prerequisite of democracy. How is it a precondition for democracy? Anta you have to give some points. How does it ensure that democracy runs smoothly? So what are the functions of judiciary? So after this point, after writing this, you can write judicial independence. Judicial independence as a prerequisite of democracy. You can give a subheading. Okay? Under that, you have to give points supporting your argument here. How is it helping? How is it a precondition? So first, you have to write that it promotes checks and balances. It ensures checks and balances. So there are some verbs that you can always use. For example, ingandre ensures, okay, promotes. For example, promotes trust in the government, promotes trust in the parliament, promotes trust in the judiciary, something like that. And then fosters. Fosters ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. Fosters is again promotes only, but instead of using promote everywhere, you are writing fosters in the second point. So ensures, enables, helps in solving issues, something like that. So these are some verbs that you have to remember so that you don't repeat the same thing in every point. That will look a little bit repeated, very monotonous. So you can have a few ready-made verbs, ready-made phrases that you can use in your answers. Okay, so here you can write that judicial independence ensures checks and balances ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು then you are explaining. What are you explaining? It prevents the tyranny of the government. Tyranny of the government ಅಂದರೆ it makes sure, it prevents the government from becoming too powerful. That is the explanation here. So here you are using some keywords like prevents, tyranny. Tyranny ಅಂದರೆ too much of power, like overpower. This is all of this you will be learning in the classes, then you will be easily able to understand. Okay, tyranny of the government, it ensures that government is working properly. Okay, then you can write this second point, promotes trust in the government. It promotes trust in democracy. And ಆಮೇಲೆ example ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು. Example like how for example there was Kesavananda Bharati case you can give, and you can give Minerva Mills case, and then you can give about what was this, Warman Rao case, and there are some cases. So this is very important in GS2. GS2 ಅಲ್ಲಿ it is when there is a question that specifically asks about Supreme Court, about judiciary, you have to definitely mention one or two cases. So there are some important cases. Idu how will you find that is there are pre-prepared PDFs where the students have already made a good collection of all important schemes, important cases, important initiatives, committee recommendations, so that you can include in your answer. That is what is called as substantiation. So ನೀವು ಈ ಥರ ಹೇಳಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಚೆಕ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಎನ್ಶೋರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಹೌ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್. In this case, Supreme Court ordered this. Supreme Court ensured that the government is not going beyond its beyond its given power. So this is how it is ensuring checks and balances. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ when we say that, and for example there was Indira Gandhi case 1975, where it said that judicial review is a basic structure of Indian constitution. So here it is making sure that government is not, government is kept in checks and balances. So the example also should be very related to the point. Point ge relate ago example agirbeku, then only it will make sense. Okay, next you can write promotes trust in the government, promotes trust in democracy. And then third point you can write so it is the fundamental protector, guarantor of the constitution. Okay, something like that. It protects people's rights, it protects fundamental rights. So for that you can give example. In this case this was said, this was Supreme Court judgment said this, something that is related to the point. Itara then you can write some 4-5 points. So general convention is that for a 10 marker you have to write 10 points, like including all the subheadings. Not that one subheading you don't have to write 10 points. If there are 2 subheadings then 5 points. Okay, whereas 15 markers you can write somewhere around 13 to 15 points. So this I am saying generally as a suggestion. So this will make sure that you have, it looks like a complete answer. It looks like you have more knowledge. Shouldn't look like just 2-3 points if you write. It might give an impression that you are not well aware of the subject. Okay, and this will cover the paper. And very importantly, a balance is needed. 150 words limit andre You shouldn't write very less also, you shouldn't write very like too much also. Shouldn't go beyond the word limit. If it is a 10 marker, 2 papers ಇದೆ ಅಂದರೆ shouldn't be very congested, like you've written a lot of things. Actually there is a myth that if you write more you will get more marks. That is not true. You have to write what is specifically asked. If you can write that in a very concise, crisp manner, that is the best way. Okay, and don't write too less also. Don't write too many less like very few points. Write adequate number of points. Okay, then after this is done, why is this happening? Okay, after that is done, then you can write sometimes but, although, or if you don't want to make a separate subheading for that, or if you want to, this is useful for transition. ಅಂದರೆ ಸಡನ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾನು ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, that is also fine. But if you want to bring a transition, a flow from positives to negatives, then you can write, you can use although, or you can use but, or you can use however, something like this. Some words you can use. Although judicial independence ensures smooth functioning of the democracy, it also has its challenges. ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು then you can write what are those challenges. As we discussed again, you can write judicial overreach. Judicial overreach was there in Vishaka Guidelines 2013 on sexual harassment. So it made some laws. So law making, whose job is law making? Legislative. So this is an overreach because it is judiciary is doing legislative's work. So that you can give an example. And sometimes you can write about resistance to reforms. For example, NJAC 2014 case where judiciary said that independence of judiciary is important, so it said that this law is invalid anta helbittu they said that we have to continue with the collegium system. So what is happening is, because of this we are not able to bring in reforms. So they are always like same, they are following their own things, something like that. Or all like there was a committee recommendation, law committee recommendation gives for all India judicial services, whereas the judiciary is not ready to, lot of people they are not ready to accept it, because then they think that it will give government a lot of power over judiciary. So this also you can write. Sometimes you can write the same point in both negatives and positives, but don't write that in the same answer. You can write it in a different paper. Some question, for example, judicial independence. ಈ NJAC ಕೇಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, NJAC ಕೇಸ್ where judiciary said that independence of the judiciary is a basic structure, so you cannot amend it. You can write it as a positive point, that it is that it is strengthening its judicial independence, something like that. Or you can write that same point in the negative, where you can say that it is not letting reforms. So some points that you can write both in positive as well as negative, but don't write the same point in the same answer in both negatives and positives. Got my point? Okay. After this, then you can write, okay, first we covered about, we gave an introduction, then we covered about the constitutional guarantee of judicial independence, then we covered whether it is a prerequisite, how it is a prerequisite of democracy, how it is a precondition of democracy. So we wrote about checks and balances, tyranny of the government, we told about trust of the government, trust of democracy, and we told about people's rights, fundamental rights, equality. You can include a few, if you don't know any specific point, you can write a little bit about it promotes fundamental rights like equality, freedom and all that. So you can give an example. After that we wrote that although it promotes, it is a precondition for democracy, it also has its own challenges. So what are those challenges we wrote? So now what we have done, we have covered the constitutional guarantee as well. We have covered how it is a precondition and what are its drawbacks. And then later after this you have to give a balanced conclusion. Okay? Then you have to say that constitutional something like you have already given the drawbacks, right? So then you can just write about how judicial independence is important. So the smooth functioning or the judicial independence has been an important feature for the working successful completion of these many years post independence, or you can write about how India is one of the largest democracies. So constitution provides for judicial independence, which helps, or which is a very important promoter, or which is an important pillar, that which has helped India smoothly, something like, okay, wait, let us write that judicial independence as a basic feature. Okay, so judicial independence as a basic feature has helped in the smooth functioning of world's largest democracy. Or you can write like something like mother of the democracy. This was also given by, I think, Prime Minister only. So something like that you can write. You can also write India at the end. You can just put a hyphen in India, or it's not necessary. Anyway, we know that we are talking about India. You can use some phrases in the conclusion which will make your answer better. You can write like it is one of the largest democracies, or you can write mother of democracy, or you can write about the successful completion of so many years post independence, that we have emerged as one of the successful democracies in the world when other democracies are failing, something like that. You can write related whatever is happening in the recent events. If you remember something from somewhere you've read, you can include that in the answer. If you don't know anything, just use some complex words and make it look a little bit better. Okay, like fundamental pillar, vibrant India, vibrant democracy, strong democracy, something like that. Some not like just don't say strong democracy or like good democracy. Just use a little bit of a word, that's it. Just write a basic conclusion, just change the adjectives. That will make it look a little bit better than normal conclusions. Okay. Have you guys completed ethics? Okay, then we'll actually, I didn't know that you have not done polity. We can actually discuss about ethics GS-4 answers next session, possible. This is also again comment. We'll check another question. Okay. Compare and contrast. So initially when you're starting to write answers, I suggest that students read the questions twice at least, because first reading only you feel like you understand the question, but sometimes it is possible that you miss the basic very minute details of the question what is asked. Okay, so this is a very easy question, but sometimes question might come in 4-5 lines, like 2-3 questions will be asked in the same question. So those kind of questions, it is important. What you can do is when you are going to answer a question, you can just circle important keywords in the question. Then you will be easily able to identify what I have to address now. Okay, this will be very helpful when you are addressing a question which has multiple parts, multiple questions in a question only. You will know, okay, when you have circled everything, then you will first address that, then this, then this, then this, then it will be a proper logical answer. It will be there with a flow. Okay. Compare and contrast the British and Indian approaches to parliamentary sovereignty. So here he is not asking about parliamentary form of government. He is very specifically asking about sovereignty. So first ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮೈಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು that I have to specifically address sovereignty in the first point. Got it? Because that's the priority point. Now here is asking about compare and contrast. What did you get from that? Compare and contrast. We have to contrast andre ಏನು? So you have to write both similarities and differences. Actually this is a very straightforward question because they've asked both compare and contrast. Sometimes they'll just ask compare, then you can't write only similarities, you also have to write both differences as well as similarities. Okay. So first the question is about what? Parliamentary sovereignty. So first you have to write what is parliamentary sovereignty. Parliamentary sovereignty is a power given to the parliament in order to make laws for the functioning of the country. Okay, something like that, very basic definition you can give. Why? Because this is about two countries, so there is not particular article that you can include. If they had asked only about India, then you could have included article this from Indian constitution says this. So you just give a basic introduction, then you write about you can, so here the subheadings are not given in the question, but you will have to make your own subheadings. First write about the differences. Why? Because if you know about this point, if you know about this particular topic, you will know that there are more differences than similarities. And he is generally, even though he has asked compare and contrast, he is asking differences. Why? Because parliamentary sovereignty of India and British is different, fundamentally different. Okay. So differences between Indian and British approaches to parliamentary sovereignty. Okay. This will be your first subheading. Box it so that you can make sure it will be very visible that okay, this is one subheading. After that so there are two ways you can address this question. First way would be you make a table. Okay, table ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು Indian British ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು you can write the comparison. So here you don't have to you can write first differences and then make a table, then you can write the points. After that you can write similarities and write in points. Why I am saying points and similarities is because similarities ಮತ್ತೆ ನೀವು ಟೇಬಲ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನೇ ಬರಿತೀರಾ, ಅಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಅದನ್ನೇ ಬರಿತೀರಾ. So similarities you just write points. Okay. Whereas differences you can make table and write, but you can also approach it in the point wise manner. Just you're giving 1 point, 2, second point, third point. So you can write in both approaches. Okay. If you feel whatever you personally feel like is better, this will depend upon your style of writing. If you're someone who writes very specifically short agi baritira andre, then you can go for the table. But if you're someone who likes to explain it a little bit, who writes it in a little bit of poetic manner, then you can use sentences, points. Okay. Let us first write in points. Table you can automatically, you will be able to figure out how to write it in table. If you are writing it in points, then first point. So since you guys have not covered, I don't know if you know the basics of this. So in British constitution, the parliamentary is sovereign. Andre there is nothing beyond the parliament, something like that. Parliament is sovereign. But whereas in Indian constitution, parliament is not sovereign. Constitutional supremacy. We have constitutional supremacy, whereas the British has parliamentary sovereignty. Okay, that you can write as 1 point. British Constitution provides for parliamentary sovereignty, or actually British ಅಲ್ಲಿ written constitution ಇಲ್ಲ, so you can write British government or British form of government, British form of parliamentary government provides for parliamentary sovereignty ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು British government provides for parliamentary sovereignty. And sometimes you have to know that you can underline very important points, very important keywords. Here the keyword is parliamentary sovereignty, so you can underline that. Whereas Indian constitution, Indian government, Indian system or Indian parliamentary system provides for constitutional supremacy. That's it. This is the first point. Why this is the first point is because question is about parliamentary sovereignty. So the first point should be about parliamentary sovereignty. And here ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ sometimes there might not be 5 points only about parliamentary sovereignty. What are the things we know about parliamentary sovereignty? We know that British gives for parliamentary sovereignty, and we know that British ministers have to countersign official acts. Have you heard of this? Okay, there's a system in British government where if the parliament is making a law, then the minister has to countersign it. ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಬಾಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದು ಕೊಟ್ಟು something like that, something like guarantee. Whereas in Indian government we don't have that. The minister doesn't have to countersign the official acts. Okay, and also these are the 2 points we know about parliamentary sovereignty. Otherwise we don't know what is the differences of parliamentary sovereignty exactly. So first point you write this, second point you write about the countersigning of acts and laws. Third point you can write a generic point about both comparison between Indian and British approaches of parliament, or Indian and British form of parliamentary government. Okay, second you will be writing about countersigning. So now the entire question is here done, because we only know 2 things about parliamentary sovereignty. So instead of to fill those next 3 points, you have to write the basic points. That so British does not have a written constitution. It is mostly dependent on conventions and statutes. That you can write on third point. If you are writing it in the table manner, then if you are dividing it into table, on the Indian side you can write constitutional supremacy, on the British side you can write parliamentary sovereignty. Okay, and you can just explain it in 5-6 words. Okay, Indian constitution provides for constitutional supremacy, whereas British form of government provides for parliamentary sovereignty. Then second point, countersigning. British ministers is obligatory for them to countersign the official acts or laws, whereas in Indian form of government the ministers don't have to, the minister doesn't have to countersign the acts. Okay, this will be a second point. Third point is a generic point, unwritten constitution. So British has an unwritten form of constitution, whereas Indian constitution is the largest written constitution. Okay, and then fourth point will be India ಅಲ್ಲಿ you have union, center, states and panchayati, right? Whereas in British they have only one. Andre for the entire country they have only center. So they are unitary in nature. This is called as unitary feature. So you can write that as fourth point. You can say that British is unitary in nature, whereas India has federal nature of constitution with three-tiered government. Okay, this will be your fourth point. Then fifth point you can write, so there are some differences between Indian and British parliamentary form of government. So Indian Prime Minister can come from both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Did you know that Manmohan Singh was a Rajya Sabha member? So whereas in British a Rajya Sabha member, or it's not called there, it is called as House of Commons and House of the Lords. So the Prime Minister can come only from the House of Commons. So this you can write as a generic difference between both. Okay. And British Constitution, here in the same point you can write, is very flexible. It is easy to change. And what is the other point? So British is a monarchy, India is a republic. So these points, just basic points, just to fill up the space you can write, because there is nothing more you can say specifically about parliamentary sovereignty with the knowledge that we generally have for UPSC. Okay. After this, then you can write the similarities. Similarities between Indian and British parliamentary sovereignty. I forgot this bit. So India and for parliamentary form of government, what are the similarities is that so after writing this, then you will be writing the similarities. As I told you guys, because similarities are less, and basically the question's essence asks about differences. Okay. Similarities. First one is questioning the government. Question hours, committees. All of these are common in both Parliament, British Parliament as well as Indian Parliament. Okay. And law. Rule of law. Actually, rule of law is was derived from British Constitution. Okay. So then you can write about law, and then question or So after you don't, if you don't know any specific points, you can write generic points that they also have equality, rule of law, and then one vote, like equal vote for equal every person, something like that. So these are all the common points of Indian and British form of government. Okay. India is federal. There are very few basic similarities between British and Indian form of government. Okay. Only the parliamentary form of government was derived from parliamentary form of law, form of government, and rule of law was derived from British Constitution. Okay. Question or questioning the government and law making or legislative function. And also single citizenship. See, these are like basic points. Why? Because we don't know exactly what are the similarities between parliamentary sovereignty. But parliament there also does the same role, has the same role, law making for the entire country, whereas India also has the same function, law making for the entire country. Okay. And you can write in differences that there is no representation of states, that will come under unitary feature of the constitution. Okay. After this, then you will be writing a balanced conclusion. Balanced conclusion, how you can write is that both are towards democracy, both have a democratic ideal. So something like both the parliamentary governments or forms of government have a common ideal, common or fundamental ideal. Ideal of democracy with diverse approaches. So this just we are summing up everything. We are just saying that both are different, but both have common ideal, which is democracy. So this is it. Both the parliamentary governments, forms of government. Both the parliamentary forms of government have a common or fundamental ideal of democracy, but with diverse approaches. Okay. So here we addressed the demand of the question, and we have written properly with subheadings in the proper flow with introduction, subheadings, points, and then conclusion. Here you can't give a lot of examples. Why? Because it is from the static part of the static part of the subject. Static part of the subject, there will be a little bit of limitation until up to where you can write. Whereas in some questions which are like very wide, something about judiciary, something about law, something about rights, then you can write a lot of examples. Okay. Okay, we'll write this, we'll do this question. Why? Because this is a basic question. This is from social justice part, not from polity. This is about human resource development. Okay, the crucial aspect of development process has been the inadequate. So they've already mentioned that it is inadequate. So then you have to address that it is, what are the inadequacies in the answer. Okay, whatever is specifically said already our established ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ definitely you have to address in the answer. Okay, inadequate attention paid to human resource development in India, suggest measures. So in some questions they might not give suggest measures, but if it is about some social problem, if it is about some society problem, political problem, economical problem, you will have to give measures at the last. Okay, and this will differ. Ivaga if they have already asked measures in the question, you have to write more. Andre last somewhere around 40% you have to give measures. But if the measures are not specifically mentioned in the question, you can just write 20%. Lastly, just like this, you can give 3 points. But if measures are already asked, you have to write it as a subheading. Okay. Okay. Inadequate measures, human resource development. So first, how do you address this question is, first of all, you have to think what is human resource development. Okay. First, when you think of human resource development, you will get a few things that comprises human resource development. Automatically when you think about this, you will be able to generate points. Okay. First of all, here they have already said that it is inadequate. So first you have to write an introduction that relates to the question, that it is inadequate. So you can either give a fact, or you can give a report, or you can give some percentage about India's human resource development. So for example, there is this global human development index. So India is this 134th rank out of 193. So India, according to UNDP report, or according to UNDP Global Human Development Index, India ranks 134 out of 193 countries. And you can also say, if you don't know, if you don't remember the number, you can say India is lagging behind its neighbors, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. So India has a lower rank even compared to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So if you remember that, then you don't have to write number. If you don't remember it, you can just write India, according to UNDP report, India is lagging behind its neighbors in human development index, its neighbors like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka in human development. Okay. So here we will be writing about the first, since we remember the number, we can write that according to this report, human development index score or human development index rank of India is just 134 out of 193 countries. Okay, this is the introduction. Okay, after introduction, now we are addressing the point of inadequacies. So straight go to what is asked in the question. Okay, inadequacies, inadequate attention. If you don't have to paraphrase anything, it's already given in the question. So you can just write that inadequate attention paid to human resource development. Okay. So what are the human components of human resource development? So health, education, and standard of living is for human development. Human resource development ಅಂದರೆ specifically ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ? What do you need for what you need skill development. So because here HR, human resource, we are looking at human as a resource. Then to be a useful resource, he has to have good health, good education and good skills to be employable. Okay. So now according to this we will be writing our points. Okay. What is the inadequate attention paid to HRD? First you can write that lack of attention given to health. Then you can write, just to substantiate, you can write according to NFHS 5 survey, 35% of Indian children under the age of 5 are stunted, something like that. So especially when you are going through some reports, for example NFHS 5 will be very helpful to address all the questions of society, social justice. Okay. After that economic survey will also help, some points in that you can use. And second are committee recommendations for ethics and governance. So these are some basic information. If you just keep it, even if you don't write like an excellent answer, so just with these basic, some recommendations, some committee reports, you can address almost all of the questions. Okay. So lack of attention to nutrition or lack of attention to good health, something like that you can write. So that is a phrase first. Then you write that according to NFHS 5, this many percentage of people, students, children are stunted. So this is an example you are giving, or substantiation you are giving, validity to your point. Okay. Second will be, so first we have addressed health, right? Second, what will be addressing? Education. Education. So lack of holistic education. So education literacy rate is decent, but despite literacy rate, why human resource development is not that great is because just literacy is not enough. Holistic education. So holistic education ante which focuses on development of the individual. Okay. Development of skills, development of communication skills, development of interpersonal skills. So this should be more based on understanding. So then you will write that improper focus on holistic education, something like that you write. And then you can say, you can give about, if you don't know about the rate of how the numeracy rate is there, then you can say this many percent, 1 out of 7 people are not able to read under the age of 8. Some report would have said something about this. So here you can also, if you don't know about this, you can just write that literacy rate of these many, this percentage, females or male, or just average literacy rate is this much, 77%, 79%. Then or you can write that gross enrollment ratio. Oh, you know what is gross enrollment ratio, right? Enrollment ratio in schools ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು gross enrollment ratio. Okay, this is low. Then you can give a fact point. So here, since you are writing about inadequate attention, you can't write that something is better. You have to write that something is lacking, because then only it will support your point, right? ಇದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು you can't write fact that says that this is good, right? So you have to write that something is missing. Then you have to write a fact or some percentage that says something is missing. Okay. So when you are saying that, the third point you will see. Okay. So lack of skill development or gap, skill development gap. Just write skill development gap. Then write, according to economic survey 2023 to 24, only 51% of young population are employable. So this was from the recent report of economic survey 2023-24 ಬಂತಲ್ವಾ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ the government had only said that only 51% of the the workforce is employable. Employable in the sense that they have good skills, necessary skills needed for that particular job. Okay, so now we have addressed about the we have written about nutrition, health, we have written about education, then we have written about skill, and then we can write about lack of innovation. Innovation illa, so you can write that only 0.7% of GDP is spent on research and development. So then you are supporting the point that there is no innovation in India, lack of innovation, not no innovation, sorry, lack of innovation in India, that it is less. Or sometimes you can say that China list birthday is they are doing 2.2% or 3%, but in India it is only 0.7%. When you are comparing, then it makes more validation, it substantiates your point, it says that okay, something is better there, that's because they have, that is why they have good human resource development, whereas in India this is lacking. So you can give innovation. Okay, so these are the points that we will be writing, and behind that you will give factual information. Okay, or if you want to still write 5 points, you can write about something about implementation, lack of implementation, or there are some basic points which you can include in almost every answer, like lack of awareness. Lack of awareness is everywhere, right? So if you don't have a point, then sometimes you can write it in the last point. Lack of awareness, lack of implementation, or improper implementation, or less focus on implementation, something like that. Okay, or some gaps, infrastructural gaps, something like that. Some basic points which you can include in almost every answer. So make note of that. Then if you don't remember any point, you can just write it there. Okay, that will that will complete your answer. Okay, so after this point where we have already discussed the inadequacies, now we will be giving measures. Measures to address human resource development inadequacy. So here, see, we have given an introduction. He is saying that it is inadequate. So we have mentioned why it is inadequate and what is the inadequacy. Now, as he has asked, we are giving the measures. So measures, how can you write measures is, already ನೀವು problems ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಲ್ವಾ, problems related measures only you can give. So you don't have to think a lot about measures. So first what did we do? We talked about health. So you can say that focus on nutrition and health and healthcare or something like that. Since it is a social justice topic, you can write healthcare. Example, PM Poshan Yojana or Ayushman Bharat Yojana, or do you know about Ashas? Ashas are these healthcare workers. So delivery of nutrition baskets by Ashas. These are the examples that you can give under that. Okay, so example, give that example. Then second, you can write, what did we write? We wrote about education. Again, the measure will also be about education. Focus on holistic development or learning or multifaceted development of children. Multifaceted education and learning, something like that you can write. And under this you can write NEP. NEP, if you know any specific points you have to write. You can't just write NEP. It is good, but it is not that good. So you can also write, there's this Kasturi Rangan committee. Okay, so you can mention, if you don't know about that, you can write just Kasturi Rangan committee recommends 6% of GDP expenditure on education. So something like that. This committee recommends 6% of GDP expenditure on education. So then you are giving a measure and you are giving a committee that recommends this. So that will add validation to your point. Okay. Third, what was the third point in the question? Skill development. So you can write about skill development with focus on vocational training. So vocational training is a keyword here. So then you can write PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana, or you can write about artisanal production, you can write PM Vishwakarma. So or you can, not only schemes, you can also write about some initiatives that government has taken. You shouldn't be always Yojana, Yojana, Yojana. Some other things also you can write. And then fourth point was about lack of innovation. Then you can write about foster innovation and critical thinking, something like that, and write about Atal Innovation Mission, DRDO, something related to these. Or you can write about some scholarships or some school initiatives, very particular, that ivaga PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana, this everybody knows, right? So when you write something that not a lot of people know, but it is very good example, this will fetch you extra marks, 0.25, 0.5 marks, okay? After that, so these measures are done, and then fifth should be addressing the structural and administrative concerns, administrative gaps, something like that, basic point you can write, or like awareness creation. So if you are writing the point, if the point was lack of awareness, here I don't think it is that relevant. You can write about public participation, or you can write in e-governance, you can write about lack of awareness. Then you can write measure as awareness creation. Okay, whatever points you are writing in the previous subtopic, you can use the same points in measures, so that you don't have to think a lot what to write. Just address that, and then after that you give a balanced conclusion. Okay, so here since this is about human resource development, you can write about India being a developed country by 2047, or so all of these measures can be implemented to make India a developed country by 2047, or you can write all of these measures can be implemented to benefit from one of the youngest workforce. So you know, youngest demographic dividend, you know about demographic dividend, right? So India is one of the youngest demographic population, so that you can write. So it can be implemented to make full use of, to make optimal use of demographic workforce of India. Okay. And mostly in social justice, and if it is about development, if it is about economy, you have to write a very positive, very optimistic conclusion, okay, that India will become a developed country. India, through this, all of these things should be addressed in order to achieve our goal, our dream of this Viksit Bharat, something like that. You have to write very optimistic, positive conclusion. Okay. Okay, I'll give you a small task now. Just read this question. If possible, write this question in your copies. All of you guys, you have copies in your hands, right? Write the question in the copies, and as we did the circling, let's see how you circle the important directives, important points, important words given in the question. So right now you don't have to worry about the points that you are going to write in the question. Just what I said, just underline or circle important things in the question. Write the question, underline them, then write the framework. Intro, what is the subheading? Don't write points. Don't need to write points. Don't need to write intro also. So intro, write intro. After that, from whatever thing you have got, whatever you feel like should be the subheading, write that subheading and fill it. Fill only the subheadings. Write only the subheadings. Let's see how if you have understood the demand of the question. Okay. don't write points yet, you can go home and write. I just want to check whether you have understood the demand of the question. We'll go one by one because ivaga to write all these points you have not completed the foundation classes of these particular topics. So it will be very impractical if I am expecting you guys to write points. Let's just understand what they are asking here, okay? And tone of the question is also important. Tone encares, are they saying something and asking you to discuss about it, or are they asking you a direct question, are they asking you to analyze it? So you have to know the tone of the question. Accordingly you will be able to discover. So if you have made any mistakes, now we will discuss what is the demand of the question. Try to rectify it. Next question you can try copy it and try doing that, circling or underlining important points, okay? So here the main thing is about e-governance. E-governance, you know about e-governance, right? So e-governance is the main thing. And critical tool in effectiveness, transparency, accountability, and what inadequacies hamper the enhancement of these features. Hamper andre stopping, obstacle tara. So the points here are, so how we'll write the answer is, we'll give an introduction about e-governance, and then the first point will be about e-governance being a critical tool. If you want to save some space, if you don't have a lot of points, how you can write is like this. So here you can give e-governance, the intersection of all the three, and then you can write effectiveness, accountability, transparency. Full, don't write actually don't write shortcut government, don't write GOVT in the answers, okay? Write full as government, and then just write points, 3 points. So here the main thing is critical tool. How is it a critical tool? In effectiveness, transparency and accountability. This is the first part of the question, okay? Then after this is done, all the points you write, examples you will be giving. After that you will be writing inadequacies. So inadequate, inadequate agide, inadequacies in e-governance, or you can just write whatever is there exactly. Inadequacies that hamper the enhancement of e-governance. That's it. This is the second subheading. And then you write what are the inadequacies, example, and then what is the thing that is not mentioned in the question but you have to write here? Measures. So measures. Why? Because measures ಇಲ್ಲಿ short ಆಗಿ ಬರಿಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Why? Because it's not given explicitly in the question. You have to write more inadequacies. What are the inadequacies andre gaps, ಏನು ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದೆ, what is the challenges in that ಅನ್ನೋದು ಬರೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು you can give some examples. After that you can write measures. Why? Because you are a solution provider. So you can write like this. You don't have to write point wise. Just write it in the end of the answer. Measures and give what you can address according to the inadequacies. Then give a conclusion. Balanced, very optimistic conclusion, okay, about e-governance. That's it. So this is very important. Why? Because first you have to understand what they are asking and understand what you have to write, so that when you have necessary amount of knowledge after you complete your classes and after you read all the books that are necessary, you have to know what they are asking and what you have to deliver, okay? So this is the basic thing. Here we have addressed that it is a critical tool. We have also addressed first about in the intro we have addressed about e-governance. Then we have addressed about all the nouns given in the question. Effectiveness also we have addressed. Accountability, transparency. Why I gave this is because if you write it separately point wise, it might take a lot of your space. Since this is a 10-mark question, this will be better and this will look easy. It will look good. Why? Because question ella answer allo will be writing it in points. Somewhere if it looks a little bit different, it will seem like it is a little innovative. That's it, okay? And since we won't have a lot of points, like unlimited points in these kind of specific points for accountability and transparency, This mind map, this map chart will make it look good. Okay. After that, we have addressed the inadequacies talked about in the question. We have given the measures, conclusion. That's it. Okay. So this is how you basically address a question. After you go home, what you can do is you can all these, how many 4 questions have we discussed? You can write an answer. Try to write an answer. If you don't know the knowledge part, don't worry about it at all, because you are in the beginning of the preparation. You can search Google searches. First Google search it, make your points, write that in a rough sheet, then write a proper structural answer. If it's okay if you see and write, no problem. Okay. The first thing we have to, the important thing we have to write here, learn here is how to write. Okay. So try to learn it first, learn the topic, read about it, then write answers without, after learning, don't see and write. Okay. First learn, like understand about it, read about it, then without looking at it, write the 4 questions. And after writing it, tomorrow or day after tomorrow, submit it to ma'am. I'll correct it. I'll see how you guys have written, and I'll give you remarks about it. Okay. Thank you guys.